Park Ranger Scott Irvine introduces the Park After Dark video series. He is shown from the waist up, standing in front of a white hearth. The hearth serves as a backdrop but also as a bookshelf for a couple of dozen old, leather-bound volumes and an antique clock. There is a framed print above the hearth, too, that is indistinguishable, except that it clearly is a black and white image. Irvine does not distinguish this setting in his talk, but it appears to be in a historic structure, from the type of creme to colored wood paneling on the walls. Irvine is wearing a traditional ranger uniform, with a khaki shirt that is colored. The shirt is short-sleeved and buttoned in the front, except for the top button, keeping the collar loose at his neck. The shirt has a small, rectangular, and golden name badge on the right side of it, just above one buttoned pocket, and a National Park Service badge on the left side of it, just above another matching buttoned pocket. A slight hint of the NPS Arrowhead logo is visible on his left sleeve, near his shoulder. Irvine's hair is peppered brown, white, and gray. He shaves the sides, even shorter than his beard, but on top, he lets it grow a bit longer, about the length of his full but trimmed beard. During his introduction, a dozen different images are shown intermittently on the screen while he talks. Each of these will be described briefly as they are shown on the screen.
Welcome to Fort Vancouver National Historical Site.
Fort Vancouver's wooden post palisade is shown from outside the gates, with a focus on the landmark bastion. The bastion is a roughly 2-story tall wooden tower. The first-story walls align with the wooden posts that surround the fort as its stockade. The second floor is a distinctive octagon shape, with small windows on each panel that face outward, serving as a watchtower of sorts for keeping track of the nearby Americans and their movements. Outside the stockade is a field of green, with a couple of stretches of fence posts. The sky is clear, ranging from white to light blue, and there is a flock of geese flying over the stockade. Behind the stockade, the tops of medium-sized trees can be spotted. The sun is starting to set, casting a warm light on one side of the bastion and dark shadows on the other.
This fall, we're unable to hold this event safely, so we've put a group of our volunteers together to film a series of Park After Dark videos.
In this black and white image, 4 costumed Fort Vancouver interpreters are shown posing in front of a historic building. They are standing in a row and looking into the camera. From left to right, the first interpreter is dressed as a military captain in a formal British uniform. His shirt and hat are dark-colored, with light trimmings, such as epaulets and buttons. The second character, a woman holding an 1845 sign, has a less formal appearance, wearing an oversized dress. The third character is a woman in a dress as well, but she wears a top hat, like the fourth character, next to her. He has the look of a formal British gentleman. He wears a high collar and a silk cravat. He also is holding a decorative cane.
So you can learn more about people and places at Fort Vancouver. As we move into autumn, we hope you join us for this cozy evening. Fort Vancouver is a diverse community that includes Hudson's Bay Company officers, company employees, and their families.
A rectangular painting of Fort Vancouver from the mid-19th century illustrates a panoramic of what the fort looked like at its peak, around when it was called the New York of the Pacific. The perspective is from a distance, as if the viewer was looking at the scene from a hill a few miles away but with an unobstructed view. The bustling fort area has dozens of buildings inside the stockade and outside in the close vicinity, some of different heights and rectangular shapes but mostly made of unfinished wood. There are a couple of exceptions, such as the counting house, near the fort's gate, which is painted white. On the nearby Columbia River, in the background, a 3-masted ship sails by. In the foreground of the fort, there is a garden being tilled by a horse-drawn plow. A few people also are shown gathered near the gate, about to enter the fort, but they are too small in the image to distinguish any details about them. The south side of the Columbia River appears to be heavily forested. The north bank, where the fort sits, is mostly cleared but also still retains trees of different varieties, including an orderly orchard near the palisade.
From 1825 to the mid-19th century, Fort Vancouver was regional headquarters of the Hudson's Bay Company's Columbia Department. In the 1840s, this became an important stop on the Oregon Trail. 1845 was an important year for Fort Vancouver, and it was an important year for the National Park Service.
A series of 6 images are shown in rapid succession. The first is a photograph of a young man walking inside the fort's palisade in period dress. He is in the foreground and the focus of the image. He has on a red checkered hat, a long brown coat, a silk cravat, tan pants and high brown boots. The fort's field in this scene is yellow, like in fall, and there are a few indistinguishable people, including fort visitors, in the distance but still within the palisade walls. Part of one of the first door buildings also can be seen. It is a roughly 2-story tall wooden building without windows. The second image also shows people in period dress inside the stockade. This time, they are 7 young girls, in long dresses, playing a game in the grassy field inside the stockade with sticks and wooden hoops. The third image is a black and white archaeological map of the buildings inside the stockade, showing rectangles to represent the structures, with some minor topographical lines as well. The fourth image is a photograph of Fort Vancouver's kitchen, which is in the back of the chief factor's house. The kitchen has a rough-hewn and humble look, especially in contrast to the majestic and white painted walls of the chief factor's house. The kitchen has a covered entryway, where wheelbarrows and stacks of wood for the fireplaces are kept. It has a single window, near the door, on the first floor, but 2 additional windows, roughly above the door, on the second floor. The final 2 images show 2 different perspectives of the fort's bastion and stockade. One shows the same image from earlier in the video, of the bastion and the 2 fence segments. The second one is a dramatic silhouette of the bastion, at sunset, which highlights the pointedness of the roof and the tree line in the background, with a flock of birds flying over the scene.
The fort you see today is a reconstruction built on the archaeological footprint of the original, which stood here until it burnt down in the 1860s. When the National Park Service began the reconstruction in the late 1960s, they decided to recreate the fort as it appeared in 1845. But why 1845? 1845 was a year of great change for this community. When Fort Vancouver was built 20 years earlier, this territory was home to indigenous people, tribes, and nations.
A map is briefly shown that illustrates the area of the Pacific Northwest under dispute between British and American forces. This map spans from the 54th parallel to the 42nd parallel, staking out the extreme positions of either side. The countries eventually settled on the 49th parallel, where the current US and Canadian border is today, which meant that Fort Vancouver would have to be abandoned and the Hudson's Bay Company would move its operations several hundreds of miles to the north.
British trading posts like Fort Vancouver dotted the landscape. The 1830s had waves of disease due to the increasing presence of trappers and settlers. By the 1840s, missionaries and American immigrants were crossing the Oregon Trail.
In the first photo, a band of 4 pioneers on horses are shown traveling through a dry and grassy field. Each are equipped with a light-colored button-up, a cowboy hat, and a saddle. 3 of the 4 are gazing away from the camera, into the horizon, a pale blue sky divided by a dull green strip of flat farmland. The 4th's face, though turned toward the camera, is indistinguishably shaded by his hat. Behind the men on horses, travels a horse-pulled covered wagon. In the wagon, there are 2 shadowy figures who look to be a man and a woman. The woman, though her facial features cannot be seen, looks to the camera from the back of the wagon. The man, who sits in the front, is holding the reins of the horses. The second photo is a historic, black and white illustration of Oregon City in 1845. The drawing focuses on the multitude of rectangular-shaped houses and establishments that line the Willamette River in Oregon, in the town where McLaughlin moved after Fort Vancouver. Though hard to see, each building is decorated with small, arched windows, and the roofs are shaded both dark and light gray. Just outside the city, in the background, lies a church with a pointed steeple. Behind the city lies 3 distinct, thick layers of shrubbery and forest. Further in the background is the faint outline of Mount Hood. The foreground of the drawing shows the banks of the Willamette River. Across from Oregon City 4 people are standing near the water, amid a few trees and bushes.
These American immigrants formed a new government south of the Columbia River and challenged the Hudson's Bay Company's influence in the Northwest. At the same time, Fur demand in Europe was on a decline, and the Hudson's Bay Company focused its attention to agricultural production.
This photograph shows a man in period dress holding a plow while it is pulled through a field by two brown horses. The man wears a straw hat, a long-sleeved blue shirt, long gray pants and boots. In the background is the fort's palisade, with a few rooftops and buildings visible over the top of the stockade wall.
1845 was an exciting time to be an American in the Pacific Northwest. Also a challenging time to be a Hudson's Bay Company employee. It was also a time of threat for Native American people, as their lives would change forever.
This image of an encampment shows a couple of tents set up, with long sticks as support poles. The rest of the activity on this sunny day is obscured in the background under the shadows of the trees. It also shows a young girl in a 19th century blue checkered dress, ankle-length and long-sleeved, walking away from the camera.
In this episode, we're going to visit the counting house, which was originally built as a new office for the company clerks. However, it was also used as a temporary home to the commander of the HMS Modeste.
This next part of the video opens with Mac Delamata, the Fort Vancouver interpreter who narrates the rest of the video. The shot displays him centered and from the waist up. As he speaks, the frame periodically switches between closer and longer shots. He wears a dark blue, traditional, English naval captain uniform that is decorated with golden buttons, tasseled epaulets, and red detailing on the cuffs and collar. He has a round face that is accented with a full but cleanly kept beard. The brown hair that is visible underneath his large, black, boat-shaped hat is buzzed short. He talks from a wood-top-paneled room painted matte sky blue. Behind him, two white doors, accentuated with white trim, are visible. With his left elbow, Delamata leans on what looks to be the top of a brown lectern. An old-fashioned lantern with a small, burning candle and a leather-bound book sit beside his arm. As he speaks, a number of images are presented intermittently. Each of these will be described briefly as they appear on the screen.
Hi, my name is Matt Delamata. Some of you have probably seen me inside of the blacksmith shop.
The video briefly displays an image of Mac Delamata working in the blacksmith's shop. The image focuses on Delamata, in a red, cuffed shirt and brown leather apron, forging a piece of glowing hot metal with a hammer and an iron. He is demonstrating blacksmith practices that were once used in the fort. A firework of molten sparks are shown flying from the metal under the force of the hammer. Both Delamata's hand and hammer are blurred in their battering motion. The background consists of a shadowy room with paneled, unfinished walls adorned with many metal tools arranged on wooden racks. On a red brick stand sits a candle lantern that along with the glowing piece of metal casts a soft glow throughout the room. Directly behind him lies a white trimmed window that reveals the night's darkness.
Well, today, I'm not in the blacksmith shop. I'm actually in the counting house.
The first of two back-to-back images focuses on the stark white, rectangular exterior of the counting house. The photo was taken at an angle and a small, shadowed section of the house's side is visible. The entrance, in the front of the house, includes a white door, 4 windows, and a decorative but shallow porch overhang. Above the overhang is a sign with the Hudson's Bay Company coat of arms. The coat of arms includes 2 rearing bucks, a red cross and beavers on a decorated shield, plus a sitting fox, and gold detailing. Behind the dark, triangular roof of this building, there is a bright blue and clear sky. Under the skyline, mature trees, a small section of the fort's wall, and a glimpse of another fort building are visible. A painted red bench sits on the concrete in front of the house waiting for visitors to take a rest. The second image shows Delamata in the full costume of Captain Bailey. He is wearing the same outfit as when he is presenting, but in this photo, we can see his white starchy pants, plain black belt, and red-topped black boots. This time he also holds a gold-tasseled sword in his scabbard and wears an almost floor-length, dark blue cape. He poses with his chin pointed slightly to the side and one foot out front. One hand is at his waist and the other grasps the hilt of his sword. His facial expression is neutral. He is standing on the patio of a gray building, adorned with columns and windows.
They have me dressed as Captain Thomas Bailey. Now, Captain Thomas Bailey, he was in charge of the HMS Modeste.
The first of two back-to-back images shown over Delamotta's left shoulder features an illustration of the HMS Modeste. The ship has 3 masts, a long bowsprit, and a low striped hull. There is a similar ship drawn behind it, but it faces perpendicular to the viewer instead of parallel like the HMS Modeste. Above the ships, a bright, cloudy sky is sprinkled with seagulls, and below, the choppy Pacific Ocean is peppered with rocks. In the horizon, outlines of more ships can be seen. The second image is the British flag or Union Jack. The background of the flag is navy blue and is layered with a large, red and white lined diagonal and vertical cross. With the diagonal cross underneath the vertical cross, a star-like image is created.
They arrived here in the fall of 1845 and left in the spring of 1847. Part of the reason that we were here was to ensure that the Americans knew that Great Britain also held interest in this land. One of the other things that occurred while we were here is me and my crew, we became kind of ambassadors to the area. We cultivated a lot of, how you might put it, were good relationships with the Americans. One of the biggest things that was done here on a regular event was there were plays held continuously within these very walls.
The first image of two shown back-to-back features a group of musicians playing string and wind instruments, while dressed in 19th century clothing. From left to right, there is a red-bearded man in a blue striped shirt, who is playing a wooden voice flute. Beside him is a brown mustached man, dressed in a gray oversized suit, who is playing the violin. Next to him, is a brown-haired woman, with glasses and a blue gingham dress, who is also playing the violin. Sitting down is a man in a rounded top hat and a dark-colored suit, who is playing the cello. Beside him, though barely in frame, is another man playing a string instrument. All of the musicians carry a look of concentration. Behind the musicians is a brightly painted blue wall, a wooden chair, and 2 slightly open windows, which expose the daylight. In the second photo, the camera is focused on the 2 young women in the foreground who are recreating a dance event from the 19th century. One has dark brown French braided and bund hair, a bright green shawl and a blue striped dress. The second woman's long dark blonde hair is braided into 2 pigtails, and she is wearing a dark green patterned dress. Both of the women are looking away from the camera to the dancing, florally dressed girls, brown suited violinist, and the bright blue walls, that are all out of focus in the background.
On more than one occasion, gentlemen and the ladies of the fort would arrive here to dance. I enjoyed a lot of the company, and the dancing as well. One of the points of contention of my arrival here, though, in 1845, believe it or not, came from some of the clerks that worked here at Fort Vancouver.
This image focuses on an expressive young clerk. He is shown with his mouth open, eyebrows raised and finger pointed into the air. His dirty face is capped with short, dark blonde hair, and he wears a dark vest on top of a traditional, long-sleeved, pleated shirt. On the desk where he is seated, the tops of a chest and a metal lantern are shown. Behind the clerk is a wooden dresser topped with a dark brown fur, contrasted against bright blue walls and a white trimmed window.
This building had been reconstructed and built to replace the old counting house. Now, unfortunately for them when I arrived, this was made my residence.
The next 4 images, shown in rapid succession, all depict parts of Captain Bale's quarters inside the counting house. The first image focuses on a small, wood-framed bed with minimal cushion. Above the bed hangs a sheathed sword with gold detailing and a wood-framed picture. The wood-paneled wall is painted a bright blue, the same color as the rest of the rooms shown in this video. A dark maroon desk, bright blue shelf and brown chest are situated in the image's corners. The second image is set in the same room as the earlier image and is centered around a few main objects: a dark maroon dresser with a tall candle, a bright blue shelf that displays a traditional captain hat and hat case, and a plain light brown chest. Also, a small shelf with a golden lantern and a blue wooden shelf of coat hangers can be seen on the matching blue wall. The third image zooms in on the objects on the maroon dresser from the previous photo. From left to right, there is a black, tin container that reads Thomas Bailey RN, a wooden case that holds a golden monocular, and a white candle in a brassy holder. The fourth image is a close-up of the hat and hat case that were shown in the second image. The hat case is shiny black and reads Thomas Bailey R, and the hat is also black but is made out of what looks to be felt. A decorative detail with black and gold designs is pinned to the side of the hat.
So, I did as much as I could to make sure that the clerks knew that I still cared about them and felt bad for their situation. But in secret, I really enjoyed being in here because it was a lot better than being stuck on a ship.
The series of 3 pictures shown next all feature the HMS Modest. The first image is the same illustration that was shown before of the HMS Modest on the Pacific Ocean and underneath the cloudy sky. The second image is a new illustration of the HMS Modest stuck on a white sea of snow and ice. Beneath her, groups of people are gathered to have fun on the frozen water. Behind the people and the sloop, a forest of bare trees encompass the ice. The skyline further reveals a snowy white mountain and a frosty blue sky. The third image is a Bluetooth section of the last illustration that was shown. It shows the outlines of men playing curling by sliding stones across the ice. The characters are painted in blue and black to match the cool tones of the ice around them.
One fun fact about the HMS Modeste, my ship, which is an 18-gun sloop from the British Navy, is it got stuck in the Columbia River when it froze solid in 1846. Just so happened we also did a first curling match out there against the Royal Navy versus the Hudson's Bay Company. I do believe the Hudson's Bay Company won that match, but only because we let them.
2 evening photos are shown next. The first one is a close-up view of a metal lantern with a long white candle inside, illuminating its rectangular shape. The second image, at night, shows the windows and the doorway overhang of the counting house lit up from inside. The clear night sky, with a dark blue tinge, creates a silhouette for the trees in the background. The rectangular shape of the counting house can be seen because of the light leaking out of it. The scene shifts slightly for the character of Captain Bailey. In this new setting, he appears to be in a smaller room, with a dresser, some towels, and a candlelit lantern. On top of the dresser is a pitcher. The only visible window has a thin, white curtain covering the lower half.
Ah, made it. I brought you into my chambers. A little more quiet in here. A lot less prying eyes and ears. I received word from a friend of mine from another vessel. Apparently, the HMS America, arrived here in 1845, had spies on it. Yeah. Now, what they were doing here, I'm not entirely sure. However, I also heard that Thomas Lowe is vying for Miss Putnam. Now, I bring up Thomas Lowe because Thomas Lowe kept journals his whole tenure here at Fort Vancouver. While he was here, he kept great detailed records. One of the records that I read that I actually personally enjoyed the best was during a high storm when one of the sections of the wall fell over. Just rotted right out from the base and fell over. He kept great records which allow us to actually understand more about life here at Fort Vancouver.
A series of 6 images illustrates Fort Vancouver at night. The first photograph shows a silhouette of the palisade walls with the sun directly behind the bastion, giving it a yellow glow. The second image shows an illuminated pathway between Fort Vancouver buildings. The lantern is hanging from a shepherd's hook in the grass. The third photograph is peeking through a window at a worker in the carpenter shop, sitting at a table with his back to the camera. The fourth image shows a man baking bread. The fifth image shows children at a table, dressed in period clothing, waiting to eat. And the sixth, and final image in the series, again focuses on the candlelit lanterns. Only this image is more abstract and hard to decipher, other than the white rectangular glow in the background that appears to be a window.
Of the many things that you've learned about in this video series, more information can be found at Fort Vancouver's website, with the link below.
Delamata uses this final scene to joke around with the audience. He pulls the gold tassels, called acorns, from both ends of his hat and then demonstrates how they can flap around when loose by shaking his head back and forth, as the acorns flap against the side of the hat.
One of the most annoying things about this uniform, believe it or not, for me as a volunteer here, is the hat. It is a fancy hat. I do like the hat. But every so often, these, called acorns, fall out. And then I have to put the hat back on and walk around with them flying all over the place. It's not fun.
These are the credits listed at the end of this video and the final piece of audio description provided. National Park Service at Fort Vancouver National Historic Site. Presence Park After Dark. An interpretive video series. Producer. Teresa E. Langford, Cultural Resources Program Manager. National Park Service at Fort Vancouver National Historic Site. Associate Producer. Scott Irvine, Park Guide. National Park Service at Fort Vancouver National Historic Site. Distribution Coordinator. Megan Huff, Curator. National Park Service at Fort Vancouver National Historic Site. Research. Eva Aribulo. SPU Coordinator. National Park Service at Fort Vancouver National Historic Site. Editor Forward Update Videographer. Mark Dodd. Me and the Magman Productions. Interpreters. Reggie Coates. Matt Delamata. Nancy Funk. Sabrina Hansen. Samantha Hansen. Bob Prince. Jeremy Schaefer. Parker Schaefer. Media Contributors. A. Atwood, Victor Dallins, Doug Fisher. George Gibbs, NPS, Carrie Hendricks, Charles Elestad. John B. Horner, Howard Hunt, Wayne Hunter. Scott Irvine, Paul Kane, Ross Kaplan, Ray Klein. Matthew Klosik, Jody Neeland, Frank Lahman. John O'Lory, NPS, Vic Julie Pajic, Marilu Polvi. Dave Powell, USDA Forest Service, Jenny Ray D. Zegans. Henry Wren, Susan Sheets, Walter Seidman. Lois Sums, Lori Taylor, Vidin Taylor, Lynn Thompson. Sharp Talk, Troy Wayron and Ty Watts. Robert Wheeler, John A. Wyeth, MD, Sarah Scenes. Fernando Bravo. Litho, Fort Gustavus Sohn National Park Service. Painting Village, Diana Bonin National Park Service. Richard Schlecht, Fova Painting. Day and Ha Publishers, Engravers Dutton. Thomas Goldsworth, Engraver, Inglefield. Lieutenant Artist, Messrs. Force Publishers. Kello, E.J. Artist, Stracker, Engraver. British Columbia Archives. Courtesy of the Mariners Museum and Park. National Archives and Records Administration. National Park Service. Photo SIC 25471 EW Merrill Sitka National Historical Park. Music contributors. Heartstrings featuring Nancy and Rob Downey. Emily Coder. Special thanks to Tracy Fortman, Superintendent. National Park Service at Fort Vancouver National Historic Site. Copyright 2020.